While your day is winding down, they're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Marcus, 508-996-0500. Chris McCarthy will be back on Friday. I'm here with you today. We spoke with Jack Spillane of the New Bedford Light. We spoke with Sheriff-elect Paul Heroux. And now we're speaking with Adam Bass of the North Star Reporter.
Here.
Hey, what's up?
I'm doing all right. Thank you. Long night last night.
Sure
all
was.
the way up to... Say that again?
I said it sure was.
Yeah, it was.
So, Adam Bass, the North Star Reporter, you did an excellent job covering your part of the county and a lot of the sheriff's race in general over the last however long it's been happening, feels like years. And I think were you the one to break the news of Heroux's declaration of victory?
No, actually, Ted Nisi of WPRI was the first to do that, but then I got word of it, and I also, for the North Star Reporter said, breaking Heroux called his victory that night in Somerset, and I also made mention that at that period of time, there was no concession from now defeated Sheriff, Republican Tom Hodgson, but a few minutes later, there was a concession.
My experience was basically I called after I got off the air. I called Heroux. He told me the Taunton numbers were in. He told me what the Taunton numbers were. So I was like, wait, so you won? He goes, yeah. He was like, yeah, I won. Yeah. And then, so then I went straight to Twitter, and then I'd heard from McCarthy had talked to someone in Hodgson's camp, said he had resigned, or no, he had resigned. He had conceded. So then I sent that out as soon as I could too. But so what are your thoughts overall?
Well, first of all, I was shocked last night because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I've been saying for 2 months now that this was going to be a toss-up race.
Mm-hmm.
People have asked me, what's your prediction? I said bluntly, I don't know. I predicted a either 2-point Heroux win or a 4-point Hodgson win, and the results seem to point to a 2-point to 3-point Heroux win.
Yeah.
The thing is that I was expecting Heroux to do very well in those northern municipalities. So North Attleboro, his home city of Attleboro, Easton, very educated areas. I also expected him to do very well in your area of New Bedford.
Mm-hmm.
What I did not expect him to do well in was to make up lost ground in those middle municipalities. So Berkeley, Dighton did okay, and Swansea and Somerset were big ones. He only had a 300-point vote deficit there.
Yeah.
And the fact remains is that he was able to pull the stops in those areas showed that he was able to reach a wide variety of voters.
Yeah, it's actually, it was pretty incredible when we were talking. You talked about the name ID he had to make up down here. And when Jack Spillane called in last night and gave me the New Bedford numbers, he broke the New Bedford numbers for the sheriff's race, and it was, like a 5,000-point margin. I audibly gasped. I'm like, oh my God. Because at that juncture, where the race stood at that juncture, I'm like, I said it on the air. I said, I think Heroux won the race. He really, he had, like you said, he had some buffer, but the one of the reasons he won is because he ran up the score here in New Bedford.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. That margin, that 5,000 vote margin in New Bedford, made my jaw drop when I saw it from Jack Spillane of the New Bedford Light. What I also was shocked to see Heroux do was keep Taunton close. I said that would have been a battleground city, maybe leaned Hodgson in the outcome. But what I didn't expect Hodgson to have was only a 1,000 vote lead there. I expected him to do as well as a 3,000 or a 2,000 lead as he usually does every year. But the fact that Heroux was able to keep it around 1,000 votes, that was the ball game.
That's the thing, is if we were really, like, let's say everything was in and we were waiting for Attleboro, we would have been able to call the race early, because the thing is Taunton is the Republican hub, really, of the county. You've got a Republican mayor, a lot of Republican city councilors. You had a Republican state rep before, not anymore. I guess Carol Doherty seems to have some staying power there, but it really is a Republican stronghold of the county. So if we were waiting for Attleboro, or we're waiting for any other town, for the most part, we would have called it early, because we're going to say there's going to be no path to victory. But there could have been. He would have just had to run up the score quite a bit, and I guess that wasn't possible.
Yeah, and it seems to me that from looking at the data that I have, the best towns that Hodgson had were Acushnet, which is a ancestral Democratic place. That means Democrats used to vote en masse in that area, but now they really don't anymore.
No, actually, they supported Baker's Republican primary opponent in 2018. That crazy guy that said, like, the Nazis were secretly, like, gay militants. He I forget his name, which is good, but he won Acushnet. So Acushnet's been and actually the state rep Bill Strauss, in his race, I mean, Acushnet's new to his district, but his opponent had won Acushnet. So it's an increase. And Evan Gendro, another Republican challenger, had won Acushnet. So it's an increasingly conservative area of the county.
And back in 2020, that was Donald Trump's best town in Bristol County, Massachusetts. Yeah. It was Acushnet.
Yeah, that makes sense. That seems to be the way Acushnet is heading. So. Do you have any, like, other thoughts on that? Because I actually wanted to talk about a couple of the other county races. So I'm wondering. Tim Cruz is the only survivor, right, in the county, Republican county, because there were basically the entire southeastern Massachusetts had. Except for Tom Quinn, had Republicans in each of the county, let's say, like, law enforcement, criminal justice roles. And Tim Cruz, and then you had the DA, Michael O'Keefe, and I forget the old Republican sheriff's name in Barnstable County, but the two Republican sheriff and DA in Barnstable County had left, and they've been replaced by Democrats. I wonder how much the top of the ticket has to play in that, in the the sort of the bloodbath that the Republicans had down here.
It very well could have. I know Senator Ed Markey, who represents the state, he'd been polling through for the Democratic candidate in Barnstable County, and he did fundraisers with her. He has done several canvassing events with her, as well as, I believe, now Governor-elect Maura Healey sent one of her ticket members down there. I don't remember who it was, but at the end of the day, there was a mobilization from the Democratic Party of Massachusetts down in South Coast Massachusetts that you really didn't see from the Republican Party. Jeff Deal sort of did his own thing. I remember him on Election Day sort of going to different places. He actually was in North Attleboro at noon time. I wanted to catch him and say hello, but he was only there for about 15 minutes in his car. Mm-hmm. And, it just sort of felt disorganized from the Republican Party compared to years prior. Because I'll give you an example. In 2010, when Hodgson had his last competitive race against John Quinn, you didn't really see the Democratic Party go all out. Deval Patrick had to deal with Charlie Baker. Yeah. And I believe Barney Frank was at his former representative Barney Frank was nearing a loss in Massachusetts 4th. So you don't really had that kind of mobilization.
Barney Frank went up against Sean Belot, who was a Harvard grad and a veteran. I believe he kept it like relatively close, and so Belot ran again. But then that's when Kennedy had jumped in, and Kennedy I think won by 10. But yeah, he had kept it like relatively close in that election. Belot with Frank, I do remember that. But to your point about. I noted this in my Election Day column because I talked about, each candidate's, because each candidate had, I think, a really well organized army of volunteers themselves. But what one of the advantages, I think, of the Heroux campaign was that the statewide Democrats were coordinated, all pretty coordinated, and basically together. Like, you didn't see Jeff Deal come down for Tom Hodgson. There really isn't any indication that Hodgson would have wanted that. Hodgson definitely didn't want Rayla Campbell to come down with him, right? And but you saw. I mean, I think Hodgson did some stuff with Amore, but you saw, Kim Driscoll come down and, obviously for her campaign, but for Heroux as well, spoke, basically was pumping up Heroux twice. You had Andrea Campbell come down, Dinah DeZoglio come down. And Andrea Campbell, you were at that event, I think made an impassioned plea for Paul Heroux to the crowd. So you had this uniformed united front in the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party. Everybody was basically, had their own organizations that were very insulated from each other. Yeah, fiefdoms is the exact word I was looking for. Yes, yeah. I mean, what does this mean about, what do you think this means about the future of the MassGOP?
Well, that's a very deep question to ask. Right now, the current vice chair is throwing their hat into the ring to run for leadership. Jim Lyons has not made any indication that he will not run or run again. He'll probably need to make a decision soon. Mm-hmm. To put it bluntly, these are going to be pretty rough times for the MassGOP.
Yeah.
They don't really have any proteges that they can bring up as star candidates, and that's always been their trick in their hat, excuse me. And what they were able to do was prop up these really, really rock star candidates like Mitt Romney when he was governor, Charlie Baker, Bill Weld back in the Republican wave of 94. Mm-hmm. But right now, who do they have? Anthony Amore, the auditor's candidate by the GOP, he lost. Jay McMahon, who's run for attorney general multiple times and lost for a third time.
Yeah, he got crushed.
Andrea Campbell.
Yeah.
Who do they have left? The only person I can think off the top of my head is first Essex Senator Bruce Tarr, but he has no indication of running for higher office. He's fine being the de facto leader of the Senate Republicans in Massachusetts. If to borrow a phrase from Steve Coxella from Mass Inc., they are in a lifeboat shootout right now.
Yeah,
and they are just at each other's throats and don't know what to do. And, there'll probably be some rift between Democrats because, the Democratic Party in Massachusetts is not a monolith. Not everyone is a Harvard-educated person. There's different, shapes and sizes. But the real damage that the Republican Party in Massachusetts has done to itself is really bad, to be perfectly honest.
Well, so I wanted to. You're talking about potential Republicans that could be statewide candidates. Bruce Tarr isn't going to go anywhere. He's got a good job. It doesn't really, he's got a good job. He doesn't really need to do any of that. But I thought Andrew Lelling would be a contender, but I think he would have had to be coming off the heels of his tenure as Attorney General.
Right.
And so now it's kind of like people have already forgotten about Jazel Correa and that Harvard scheme that he had uncovered. I thought actually he did a really good job as a U.S. attorney, and I feel like he might have been a viable statewide candidate. But yeah, there's not a lot of talent. They're going to have to bring some outside talent into groom, or somebody that maybe is outside the political sphere, like maybe a Chris Doty. Otherwise, it's going to be I think it is going to be a bloodbath continuing.
There's the problem, Marcus, because one of the things that's true about Massachusetts politics, and I'm quoting from Gerald and Dr. Aaron O'Brien's about Massachusetts politics, it's about insider versus outsider. And the insiders, your Maura Healey's, your Kim Driscoll's, who worked her way up in Salem politics for years, they have the power in this Commonwealth. Bring out outside folks, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. People kind of had crush issues here. And the reality is that if you bring someone else in, you're going to have to incubate them into Massachusetts politics for years and years and years. And there's not enough time to do that.
That's a good point, because I think here's the thing. There were opportunities down here in the county for Republicans to get elected if there was enough support. Some of these elections down here, these Republican challengers, did pretty well against against longtime Democratic incumbents. Now, I honestly don't think Bill Strauss is going to be in any danger. He's chairman of a powerful committee. I think he's been a great rep for our area. But I like the other reps too. I think I'm just speaking about Strauss because he's my state rep. I like the other reps too. I think they're good people doing good work. But the margins were like 54-46, 53-47, which is about 1,000, maybe 800 to 1,000 votes. So if there was an opportunity to really get a foothold down here in this county, especially considering, it's swung a bit more conservative over the last decade, and they missed that. They whiffed on that opportunity. And so it's sort of like a 10-year project that they haven't even started yet.
Right.
So we're speaking with Adam Bass of the North Star Reporter. Any thoughts on any other thoughts on the Bristol County Sheriff's race? Well, there is one thing I want to learn more about, and that is, one of the results that shocked me in particular last night was Paul Heroux winning Fall River. Now, when I saw that Heroux won the city by about 1,200 votes, I totally jumped the gun on that with the numbers I got.
That's another debacle.
Yeah, it was a debacle, though. It wasn't all my fault, yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so one of the things I was very curious about is that Fall River is a traditional Democratic voting city, but these type of Democrats are your working class Democrats, also known as the ones that move away from the party. The more the educational polarization, the divide between college-educated voters, and high school diploma voters grows wider. So the thing that was curious to me is, how did he do so well there? Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that the results will come in, but I'm betting it on two things. One, those college-educated voters up in the northern part of the city, and two, and this would be very interesting, if he killed off some Portuguese voters from Hodgson.
Yeah.
The Portuguese voting bloc is usually conservative.
Yep.
So, because he invested in a lot of radio ads in Portuguese, which are very important to the culture, from what I've been told by people who live in Fall River.
Yeah.
And the reality is that if you can win Fall River by investing in reaching out to all these kinds of voters, who knows what you can do?
So there's been a lot of talk about, and it's kind of ironic that they're complaining about it now, but there's been a lot of talk about dark money or whatever, basically PAC money. They're complaining about the PAC money. How much do you think the PAC money, keeping in mind that they both got PAC money, how much do you think the PAC money played a factor into this race?
Well, the thing about this race was not so much convincing other voters that usually vote for Hodgson to vote for Heroux, but rather convincing Democrats to fill out every single bubble on the ballot. Mm-hmm. I think the money that was put into ads by the Everytown gun safety advocacy group and the Working
Families Party.
Excuse me. Thank you. I think that motivated the voters to come out, Democratic voters, but
sure.
I'm not so sure. I think that Hodgson stepping more into the national spotlight after Trump's election may have done that. There's definitely been a national focus on this race. Even national Democrats from Massachusetts decided to talk about it during Hodgson's ad promoting public safety that mentioned Heroux's money coming from Hungarian-American philanthropist George Soros. But
yeah,
that's a whole can of worms about allegations and different types of claims that it's just too messy to talk about.
It became the stupidest part of the race, and it was like a few days before. Whether or not you think the claims are legitimate, it was like I think the ad was probably a mistake. Honestly, I think it was a mistake on their part because it didn't do them any favors, and it only allowed for opportunity for that type of criticism.
The interesting thing is, Marcus, is that this was the first ad I saw from Hodgson's camp that focused on crime, which was a ringing issue for Republicans that they could have run on in the 2022 midterms.
Yeah.
But the ad sort of went into conversations about funding, and not so much defunding the police, but rather where money is coming from for Heroux. And to me, that really didn't click as a way to win over voters.
No, yeah, I don't think that was one of the right. I don't think that was one of the. It didn't. I don't think that resonated. I mean, I don't think a lot of the other stuff that they tried to hit him with resonated either. I don't think he lost any votes over the unfair labor practice. I don't think Hodgson lost any votes over the ethics. The ethics complaint either. Those all seemed very ancillary. What do you think the winning issues were for Heroux?
I think the winning issues was, I'm just going to focus on what Hodgson did, because the reality is this campaign, this entire race, was not about Paul Heroux. It sounds weird to say that, but it was a referendum on Thomas Hodgson.
Yeah.
Hodgson based his entire campaign on, and I quote, my record in public safety, my record in running the jails, my record in how I have been an advocate for keeping Bristol County safe. So Paul Heroux said, okay, we want to talk about your record? Let's talk about your record. Let's put the spotlight on you, and I'm not going to keep it away from you. Now, Paul Heroux, he says that he doesn't want to focus so much on being a media figure in the Bristol County Sheriff's Office. And, there will be stories about the Bristol County Sheriffs because we all have to report on what's going on locally. But the reality is that Heroux's winning issue was, look, this is what Sheriff Hodgson did over the past 25 years. You want to continue with this?
Yeah. So we're speaking with Adam Bass of the North Star Reporter. I guess I'll ask this, even though we're not familiar with politics up there. Do you know any what's going to happen with the special election now for Heroux's mayoral seat?
I believe one of the city councilors is going to be running for election there. I don't remember who it is off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Attleboro is actually not the area I cover. It's North Attleboro. There is a difference.
Okay.
From what I've heard, the city, and I could be wrong about this, they may want to switch to a town manager format, but from what I can tell, there's still going to be a special election going on. Heroux has put his weight behind a certain candidate. I'll have to pull it up later, but I don't know.
He's supporting a certain candidate in that election?
Well, I suppose, yes, it's one of the city councilors. I'll have to find it later on, and I'll give you the...
Yeah, send me the info. I guess I'm now mildly interested in Attleboro. So,
it's a very beautiful city, actually. I've driven through there a couple times. Checked out the Capron Zoo, which is the Capon Zoo, excuse me, and it's a lot of fun. It's a good place to visit once in a while.
I don't like their courthouse. That's not Mayor Heroux's fault, but I really don't like that courthouse. It's old, it's small, it's uncomfortable. But
it's better than Boston City Hall.
Yeah, no, it is. It's also I like it better than the big Boston courthouse too. It's definitely less hectic. But hey, so Adam Bass, North Star Reporter. Is there anything else that struck you in this race?
Well, yeah, I think there was one thing that it caught my attention, and that was the fact that in Bristol County, one of the ballot questions is question 4.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. I think it's a demonstration of how not monolithic people's politics are based on how they split this ticket. But go ahead to explain that better.
Yeah,
sorry.
so question 4 was originally a law passed by the Massachusetts State House, both House Democrats and Senate Democrats. It would have allowed, or it is going to allow, undocumented immigrants to legally obtain driver's licenses without proof of legal identification in Massachusetts. Governor Baker vetoed it. They overrode the veto, which means they had a supermajority vote yes on it one more time, and then it's passed into law. And then the Republican Party worked on gathering signatures to put the question as a referendum on the ballot. If you voted yes for it, that means the law was going to be upheld. No, the law would be stripped, and it passed. But in Bristol County, I think every single municipality voted no on this. And
everybody here in Fairhaven, I live here. It's a pretty democratic town, and they all voted no, like overwhelmingly too.
Well, again, the thing you have to remember about Bristol County, especially the northern part, it's ancestrally Republican.
Yeah.
These are people who will still vote Republican down ballot. I'll give you an example. The auditor's race, Anthony Amore beat Diana DeZoglio in North Attleboro.
Okay.
And that's a typically Republican voting area.
Right.
It's not anymore, but the reality is that the fact remains is that it wasn't an issue that really resonated with voters to uphold the law.
Yeah.
Now, voters in Brookline, Needham, Newton, the area I actually live in, they voted yes, and they overwhelmingly voted yes. But it is interesting to see that divide, and it really gives a glimpse to how voters think. I've always wanted to understand why voters vote the way they do, and sort of pick their brains, if you will.
Right. Yeah, it is interesting. I've always, I had an off-air conversation with Chris about that. I was kind of like, part of it is like an anti-Hodgson vote. Part of it is people's politics just aren't as like uniform. Most voters' politics are, like I said, not monolithic. They're all over the place. They're inconsistent because, who has time to really think about this stuff like that deeply besides you and me who do it for a living. So, Adam Bass, North Star reporter. Hey, listen, I got to take this break, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate your coverage of this election, and we're looking forward to more collaboration going forward. Where can people go to read some of your work?
So they can go to northstarreporter.com. We're going to have another story up tomorrow. You can also check out my Twitter at Adam Bass of Mass. That's ADAMBASS of MASS. And again, you can check out our Twitter account at northstarreporter.com.
Adam Bass, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Marcus.
That was Adam Bass, North Star reporter, great young reporter doing excellent work. So go check him out. I'm gonna take this break. If you want to call, if you want to message on the app chat, or give me a call 508-996-0500. I'm here. I'm here till 10. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. It's been a wild couple days. Chris and I were in studio for 6 hours on the air, double the time that we're usually on. I mean, we'd asked till midnight, and then I called Tim at midnight. I'm like, you got to let us stay on. And he was totally down with it. And so he showed me how to do it, how to make it so, and now I know that, so I can just do it whenever I want. I'm just kidding, I won't do that. But we were able to break a few towns. We were able to break Taunton. Taunton broke. I mean, I heard about Taunton basically just as we were getting off the air. And like I said, I had called Mayor Heroux, now Sheriff-elect Heroux. I said, hey, I was like, where's Taunton? He goes, I only lost Taunton by like 1,000 votes. I'm like, oh, so you won? He goes, yeah, won. And that was basically how that happened. Bad night for Republicans in Massachusetts for sure. Chris and I talked about this. He talked about 96 with Bob Dole and how bad that was for a lot of Republicans in Massachusetts. Talked about Peter Blute, and this was really bad. I mean, Tim Cruz is the only survivor. We're gonna get DA Cruz on. I talked to someone in his camp. I said, hey, listen, I really enjoyed the conversation we had when we had him on back in August. And I think, I think he's a good guy. And obviously people of Plymouth County think he's doing a great job. So I'm interested in having him on and having more conversations with him. One of the reasons I think Cruz won is because he presents himself more as the typical Massachusetts Republicans that, and I think people are like, they're not, they're like, what's the issue here? And so I had heard from his camp that he was up 44,000 votes with 5 towns left to report. And so it seems like he won pretty handedly in the election. So we're working on having him on at some point, just to talk about the work he's doing. If you live, like I said, I've mentioned the towns, but there's a lot of people in our listening audience that live in Plymouth County. So, he wants to get the word out there about the work he's doing, I'm sure. And that's kind of it's definitely what this show's for and what it's going to be for going forward. Now, we do have a special election for Ward 3 for Councillor Dunn's seat. He's resigning December 1st. So remember, we broke that last Friday here on South Coast Tonight. I know there's a lot of interest in that story, and because I've been hearing about it nonstop, and I've been seeing, who's looking at that story. We broke that here on South Coast Tonight, and that's the entire and his exclusive comments on the issue, and so he's leaving December 1st. We'll have conversations about who can be the next, Ward 3 city councilor. I ran into Lisa Lemieux in over the weekend when I was covering the Heroux rally, and what she said was basically, she's going to do her due diligence. Didn't seem super receptive. She's got a big job. She's president of the Southeastern the GSM Labor Council. She does a lot of good work there, and it might be I don't know if that's a conflict or whatever, but she's obviously a strong candidate for the job. She'll get an army of support behind her. There's the union walks and all of that. She's definitely, and plus she's very well known for all the good work that they do with the Labor Council and such. So that's she's a candidate. It's difficult to imagine some other candidates. I've heard whisperings of people going here, there. I think I think it's going to be someone who might be fairly new to the ward, that like Councillor Dunn was. And people might complain, but at the end of the day, people just want to represent it to someone that's going to represent them well. So a lot of that carpetbagging charges, they never work. People don't care about like quote unquote carpetbaggers or whatever. They just want someone that in the office that they think is going to do a good job. But we'll see on that. There is some national elections I do want to talk about. Fetterman beat Dr. Oz. Someone asked me, was like, what do you think of the midterm elections? Like, Republicans didn't do that well. They should have in a year like this done very well, and just winning. The fact that there's even a path for the Democrats. Now, they're probably not going to win the House, but the fact that there's even a path for the Democrats to win the House is a failure, an absolute failure of the National Republican Party. And the fact that they couldn't pick up winnable seats in swing states is a failure of the Republican Party. And I say 3 reasons. These are my 3 reasons, because one of my friends asked me this. Is like, what do you think? I said 3 reasons. Trump/Trumpism. You had that lunatic Doug Mastriano who was running for governor in Pennsylvania, who basically said he wanted to send like his own electors to vote for Donald Trump in the next election, no matter how the state votes and all of that. So Trump/Trumpism, overturning Roe v. Wade. I think is a big hindrance, because you see in states even like Kansas, they voted to keep a constitutional right to abortion in their state constitution by like an 18% margin. So I think overturning Roe v. Wade, that's a very serious issue for a lot of people, most people. And the third being just running bad candidates. And that kind of ties into the Trump stuff, but it's also independent of Trump. Blake Masters was a terrible candidate for Senate, right, in Arizona. Dr. Oz was a terrible candidate. He didn't resonate, and he actually literally murdered puppies for a living. He did lab experiments for. I'm dead serious about this. He did lab experiments for a living, where he gave puppies like lethal injections and they screamed to death. It's awful. Hundreds of them. hundreds of them. And that's like a joke I heard on the show Veep about like how politically unpopular can you be. I remember the guy, the politician in Veep, he says, if I get her endorsement, I might as well nail a bunch of puppies to the floor, right? And that's basically what Dr. Oz did for a living. Plus, he had some weird campaign commercials. He wasn't very likable, so part of it is bad candidates. Herschel Walker, uniquely bad candidate. I mean, Brian Kemp's already won his election in Georgia, but Herschel Walker might still lose. Pretty incredible. So I think those are the three reasons. And you can see that here in Massachusetts. I mean, they're not raising any money. They're not coordinating, but they had some real bad candidates, and so it's hard to detach yourself from that. You look at the Democrats' election party in the Copley Plaza. Maura Healey, Kim Driscoll, Dinah DeZoglio, Andrea Campbell were all together, right? They were all together at the Copley Plaza. They had their election party together. They wanted a unified their unified ticket to be there. You didn't have that with the Republican Party, right? Where was you had Leah Allen, Jeff Deal, and Jay McMahon at the Boston Harbor Hotel. You had Rayla Campbell wherever she was. In the Upside Down, and then you had Anthony Amore somewhere else, and so they're fractured. They're fractured and uncoordinated, and they had some bad candidates. Rayla Campbell, in particular, uniquely awful and her candidate, and frankly presents as a pretty horrendous person herself. So, those are the three reasons I think Republicans drastically underperformed. Trump. Bad candidates, and the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So I'm going to take this break, and I'll be right back.
1420 WBSM, where freedom of speech lives.
You wash your hands.
Real-time reaction to everything that happens after the sun goes down.
Going down till the sun comes up.
South Coast Tonight with Marcus and Chris is on WBSM.
Good evening. Hey, you're live.
Hey, am I on?
Yep.
Okay. Marcus, I just want to thank you and Chris for the effort that you made last night to get the information out to the people.
I appreciate that.
As to the election and how it was going. And I think you guys might be tired, but I don't think you guys were bored with the 5 hours and then it turned to 6 hours that you had to work.
We definitely were not bored. It was because even while we were on air and while we were off air, we were doing a lot. We were making phone calls, we were texting people, we were doing everything we could to get those numbers. So.
I thought so, because I know you guys, 5 hours, but it seemed to fly by, and luckily you were able to catch that one more hour. My question would be, though, to you guys, what was the turnout for this election as opposed to other off-season elections in the area?
So I should have probably looked at that more, and I think we'll get a clearer picture in the coming days, but it looks like New Bedford is around a 30-ish% turnout.
And how does that compare with previous elections?
I don't think it's great. The elections haven't been well.
Was it more than before? Put it that way.
I will look into it.
Before? Okay, good. Please.
So I'll get that answer tomorrow. Actually, we'll look at I'll get a rough estimate of the turnout numbers, and I'll look at the turnout numbers last time. I think the primary was actually a little bit higher than it was in 2018. I think Mayor Mitchell said that the primary was a little bit higher than it was in 2018. One of the reasons for turnouts, I think Bristol County in general had higher turnout because of the sheriff's race.
Yeah, well, that's good. Certainly, your audience goes beyond New Bedford, and I think that was your motivation, and you and Chris all along, is to try to stir up more interest in voting and taking part in political process in this area.
I hope so, and I appreciate that.
So even if I know New Bedford is kind of a tough nut to crack, but the fact that you're getting more people involved and trying to make this area more important in the scheme of things, I think is very important for the area. I just want to thank you guys for what you're trying to do.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right, my friend. Take care.
Thank you.
Be good.
I got to take this break. That was very nice. I appreciate that. Thanks for joining me this evening. I could fit one more call in if you called in like right now. But 508-996-0500. And thanks for joining me this evening. Tomorrow, I definitely have Congressman Jake Auchincloss on. He's calling in. It'll be, that interview will be at 7, I believe. He's been making some national news with some of the stuff he's doing on foreign policy. I want to talk to him about that. I want to hear his reaction to the election too. We had Congressman Keating call after last night after his victory over Jesse Brown in his congressional election. Auchincloss didn't have an opponent. He's the only member of the delegation that didn't have an opponent this go around. So I want to talk to him about that. I want to talk about some of the stuff he's doing nationally. He's definitely made some headlines, a lot of it with foreign policy. His criticism of some of the his colleagues, his Democratic colleagues in the Congress, their proposal for how to handle the situation in Ukraine. So I'll talk to him about that. I'm really looking forward to it. And of course, I'll take your calls, throughout the night. That's who I have booked now. Maybe some more guests will appear on the schedule tomorrow. You'll just have to tune in and see. But Congressman Jake Auchincloss, always enjoy talking to him on the air, and always enjoy talking to you on the air. So I will talk to you tomorrow, 7 to 10. Friday, Chris will be back, and we'll have one of our great Friday shows planned out too. So looking forward to talking to you then. So later.